Hello students, today we'll discuss about oral communication. So let us begin by understanding the meaning of oral communication. Oral communication, the other name for it is also called as verbal communication, as we discussed in the classification of communication. It is a process of expressing information or ideas by word of mouth. So we are speaking, exchanging the information by speaking. So in oral communication, two parties are involved, that is the sender and the receiver. So both of them come together to exchange their views through speech. So face-to-face communication between individuals or group of individuals with or without the usage of any mechanical or electronic device such as telephone, teleconferences, etc., in the form of meetings, lectures, etc., or some other medias is called as oral communication. So basically, oral communication happens by exchange of ideas or information by word of mouth, by speaking between two parties, that is between sender and the receiver through a proper channel or medium. So oral communication also refers to the process of exchanging information or messages through spoken words in person and through technology such as phone calls, video conferencing, or voice messages. It involves using voice to transmit messages, ideas, or thoughts to others. It can take various forms. So this oral communication can take various forms such as verbal communication, presentations and speeches, interviews, and so on. So verbal communication is exchange of information through spoken words, whether it is formal or informal setting. Presentation and speeches involves delivering the information or ideas to a set of audience using the verbal communication. And we have seen the interviews. Interviews is also a form of oral communication. It's a conversation between two or more people where one person asks questions, the other provides the answer. So there is an exchange of information or opinions between two or more persons. Next, in the form of meetings, also this oral communication happens. So this involves a group discussions wherein the ideas, feedback, or information will be shared through oral communication among a set of people through phone calls. This is also a form of oral communication that involves talking with someone through a phone or using a mobile device. Video conferencing, we know this is a technology that allows people to communicate verbally in real time, even if they are in a different locations, we can do this oral communication. So what are the principles of oral communication? So this oral communication involves we should have a purpose before we communicate. Okay, what is the purpose behind? We should understand the purpose behind why we are communicating. Then we should use the simple words so that even a common layman should understand the communication. Pitch, especially since it is a oral communication, your voice plays very important role. So the pitch of your voice is very important. Tone and the body language. Tone shows the way, the the body language. The oral communication is always associated with your body language. So oral plus non-verbal is both are important. The tone with which you speak, using kind words, polite words. Tone speaks whether you are very polite, whether you are rude, etc. Pace of speaking, the frequency at which you speak, the speed at which you speak. Even the pace, the speed with which you speak should be understandable by the receiver, and the fluency of the language which you use. The words fluency should be understandable by the or should be clear so that the receiver can understand your words, your oral communication. So there are certain differences between oral communication and written communication. Both are verbal communication, but there are certain differences, some advantages and disadvantages associated with both of them. If at all it is a oral communication, so let us discuss the advantages of oral communication. So if it is oral communication, we feel it is more personal and it is informal since it is face-to-face information. Then it makes an immediate impact and it has an opportunity or gives an opportunity for interaction and to get the feedback also. And it always helps the speaker to correct himself or herself according to the feedback or non-verbal cues received from the receiver, because we are in a personal connection during the oral communication, better for conveying our feelings and emotions. Coming to the disadvantages, if we have a complex subject, complex ideas, facts, and opinions, which cannot be orally spoken and conveyed, it can be conveyed through written communication. So this is one of the disadvantages of, one of the advantages of written communication. And if at all, audience wants to read the message at their convenience, then written communication is better, and written communication can be circulated, and it provides an opportunity to refer back more, and it acts as a permanent record. So this record keeping is important, and this is one of the important advantage of the written communication, and can be revised before transmitting. So before we speak, we cannot edit and speak. Only if we plan, we can speak. But in written communication, we have an opportunity to edit before transmitting the message. Coming to the limitations of oral and written communication. Oral communication, it demands our ability to think coherently while we speak. So both has to happen parallelly. And one more thing is, once we utter a word which it cannot be taken back, so it is hard to control our voice, pitch, tone, frequency, all these things, especially when we are under stress and anxiety and excitement. And it is very difficult to be conscious about our body language, since oral communication is also associated with body language. Coming to the limitations of written communication, here immediate feedback will not be available for any corrections. And many people do not like to read, especially if it is a business message or an official message. And we feel it is impersonal and very remote, not as personal and informal like a oral communication. And the reader is not helped by non-verbal cues because it is written communication and it is very distant. And here we don't know whether the reader or the receiver has read the message or somebody else has read the message. That is, we don't have any clue here. And this written communication takes more time. So it is more time consuming than the oral communication. So here instant feedback, we cannot get it like a oral communication. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages of oral and written communication. Coming to the barriers of oral communication. So we have set of barriers like status barrier, halo effect, complexes, closed and all-knowing mind, poor retention, premature evaluation and hurried conclusions, cognitive dissonance, and language. These are some of the barriers to oral communication. Status. The people who are at the higher level and people who are at this lower level. This status acts as one of the barriers. So people at the higher level tend to pass on the complete information because of the ego. And people who are at the lower level hesitate to speak to their upper level because they hesitate because of their status, because of their power, because of their authority. And halo effect. People whom we believe, who we tend to trust them and we tend to follow them. So this also acts as a barrier to oral communication. Complexes. We have heard of this inferiority complex and superiority complex. Both the complexes are not good. The people who are superior, they think they are superior and they are really aggressive and arrogant. And these people who are inferior feel very hesitant and very depressed kind of. So these complexes also act as the barrier to communication. Closed and all-knowing mind. Sometimes people think like they know everything. So this is called as all-knowing mind, and they don't have any interest. So they are not open to learn. So this also acts as one of the barriers. Poor retention. As we discussed in earlier videos also, listening and retaining the information also is very important for effective communication. If the retention is very poor, then this acts as a barrier. Premature evaluation and hurried conclusion, jumping to the conclusion without listening to the complete message, that is a barrier. Cognitive dissonance, the pre-assumptions, which is related to our belief, our brain. We have assumed that this is our belief and we never want to change our belief. So we never want to incorporate the changes or accept the changes. This is a cognitive dissonance, and language is also an important barrier. So we have to always think of our audience and their understanding level and which language they are fluent into, they are able to understand. We have to make sure that we are giving them that particular, passing the message in that particular language. So these are some of the barriers to oral communication. Coming to the next concept, it is about conversation control. Conversation control refers to the skills of both listening and talking in a positive way, in a meaningful way, at an appropriate time. It is not controlling somebody else's conversation. It is having a control over our own conversation skills. It is a type of managerial skill where we have both our listening skill and talking skill. We talk in such a positive way, in such a meaningful way. We know when to talk and what to talk and how to talk, at what time to talk. So this is a key managerial skill. A manager must know when to talk and when to listen. So this includes changing techniques of changing the direction of the conversation smoothly and ability to allow a discussion to develop along key issues in an uninterrupted way towards the desired end. So where can we apply this conversation? There are many situations where we can apply this conversation. One is during selling and buying, negotiating, during interview, during participating in meetings, when we are disagreeing with something with someone without being rude, when we are protesting without being offending, when we are complimenting something and praising something, when we are responding to some criticism. All these situations we can apply this key managerial skill of conversation control. Using reflection and empathy. Reflection and empathy are powerful tools that can be used to communicate and build strong relationships. These are the two sides of effective communication. So reflection involves summarizing the other person has what other person has said to ensure that you have understood the other person's perspective. So by reflecting back, what happens is what they have said, you can show them that you have listened and that you have understood their viewpoint. So this can help both of them to build a trust and create more positive environment for discussion. And empathy is putting oneself in others' shoes and trying to understand their viewpoint, their feeling. So by showing empathy, one can demonstrate that you care about their well-being also, and that you are willing to work together to find a solution that benefits everyone who are involved. We'll discuss some tips for using this reflection and empathy. So use these reflective statements to summarize other person's main points and ensure that you understand their perspective. For example, so if I am hearing you correctly, you are saying that you feel frustrated because you don't feel like your contributions are being recognized. You try to reflect on other points of view. And second one, use empathy to acknowledge other person's feeling. For example, I can understand why you might be feeling that way. Then third one, avoid interrupting the other person and allow to finish speaking before responding. So this shows that you are respecting the input and willing to listen to others. And always use open-ended questions to encourage other person to share more about their experience. For example, can you tell me more about why you feel that way? Or what would you like to see happen in order to address this issue? Coming to the next topic, that is conversation skills and type. There are two types of conversation skills, parallel conversation and sequential conversation. Parallel conversation is a type of conversation wherein two persons who are involved in conversing do not come to a conclusion. There is no proper outcome at the end of their conversation. As if the parallel line doesn't meet together, their conversation doesn't come to a conclusion. They do not have a positive outcome at the end of their conversation. Whereas sequential conversation, the two persons start conversing one after the other, so that there is a sequential logical sequence between one statement to the other statement made by each parties. So this is called conversational skills. Coming to two sides of effective oral communication, there are two sides of effective oral communication. One side is listening, the other side is presenting. So these two are very, very important for an effective oral communication. So when you are a listener, you have to always, understand and appreciate the other person and allow other person to express freely and without interrupting. You have to listen carefully. So if you are in the listener position, when you are presenting, keep in mind that you always present facts, not the opinions. Keep always to the point. Keep the listener's interest in mind. Support the argument with suitable examples and always ask for the feedback and answer the questions honestly. Make an eye contact. So always avoid being very vague, unfocused with little eye contact. Don't discourage the questions, showing lack of confidence and not getting to the point. So as a presenter, you have to keep these points in your mind. What are the different modes of oral communication you have? One is face-to-face communication. As you all are aware, it's in real time. You can directly speak to individuals. Telephonic communication, you can speak to someone else over a distance through phone. And but one disadvantage is without the benefit of non-verbal cues. Video conferencing, this involves through a digital platform. You have both audio and video exchange. You have public speaking where you have a large group of people in lecture presentations. So you require strong speaking skills and ability to engage and connect with the audience. Group discussions, the multiple individuals having ideas are shared and discussed. And interviews between an interviewer and an interviewee. So where questions are asked and answers are given. Broadcast communication involves communication to large audience through mediums such as television and radio. So this is one way communicators speaking to audience without receiving the feedback. So that's all for the session. Thank you all.